Mike Gordon has to be one of the most criminally underrated bass players in all of rock history. His style is so unique and enigmatic, and when you watch and listen to him play, it's undeniable that he has a tangible mastery of the instrument. In this video, you're going to learn each of Mike's bass parts in one of my favorite Phish tunes, Tweezer. We're going to take the fundamental slap bass techniques and rhythms that Mike uses and build them into the parts that he actually plays in the song. There's a link to download the free tab in the description, grab your bass guitar, and let's dive in. Let's start off with some basics. Here's the fundamental rhythm that underlies the Tweezer slap, which is what Mike is playing during the verse. The rhythm sounds like bop, 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 bop. So let's kick off our metronome and give it a shot at 70 beats per minute. And before we slap it, let's pluck this line. So 1, 2, 3, 4. When I learn a slap bass line, I always learn how to pluck these lines normally before learning how to play them using a slap technique. There are two huge benefits to this. First, it will allow you to develop your fret hand muscle memory. When you practice first by plucking, your goal is just to memorize what your fret hand is doing and play it until you don't really have to think about that hand. And then when you want to learn how to slap the line, it becomes much easier since you can focus on what your attack hand is doing, since your left hand is more or less on autopilot. Second, it will allow you to get more mileage out of practice time because you're practicing the same phrase with different techniques. Now that we've plucked the first dimension, let's talk about slapping it. For every lick in this video, we're going to slap any notes on the E and A strings with our thumb. That's the S in the tab. And we're going to pop any strings on the D and G strings. That's the P in the tab. Let's look at our first dimension with slapping. 1, 2, 3, 4. This lick is super funky and really fun to play. Even if Gordon stopped writing it right here, it would still sound pretty badass. In this lick, we start off with one of the most fundamental techniques in slap bass, which is the octave slap. On a typical electric bass in standard tuning, it's really easy to find a note that's up an octave. You just go 2 strings down and 2 strings over. So 2 strings down, 2 strings over. And you found the same note up an octave. Here we are in dimension number 2. Let's pluck this riff and then we'll slap it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's try slapping it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're starting to fill out the notes of the A minor pentatonic scale while getting closer to the full riff. We're adding a pull-off next to many of our notes while retaining the fundamental rhythm we talked about in the first dimension. Mike typically doesn't let the open string notes ring out over each other. Letting them ring out over each other would sound like this. Instead, he mutes a little bit with his left hand. And muting with the left hand keeps it from ringing. We just kind of bring our hand back gently over the strings, and it'll keep it from ringing too much. As opposed to I'm just bringing my hand right back to the fretboard. And that kind of naturally mutes it. Welcome to Dimension 3. Let's pluck this, and then we're going to slap it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's try slapping it. 1, 2, 3, let's slap. Now we've got the full Tweezer riff. We've added 3 muted notes in between our pull-offs and the note E between our open string pull-offs. Maybe you find this riff way more difficult than the previous level, even though we just added a few notes. I have a little system for making complicated repeating riffs easier to learn, which I call the beat splitter. So first, we'll just try to master the first beat and learn how to repeat it. The first beat is basically just... And then we're going to try to repeat that riff. Let's try with the metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, kind of got that down. And then the next beat, what we're going to do is include that pull-off that leads into it. Right there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E and 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 1 E and. So now we've got the first 2 beats down. Let's put them together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, forgot with metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's try the third beat by itself. 1, 2, 3, just beat 3. Same as the first beat. And for beat 4, we'll include the pull-off that leads into it. 1, so it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E and 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 1 E and. So now let's put beats 3 and 4 together. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've done beats 1 and 2. We've done beats 3 and 4. Now let's put it all together. 1, 2, 3, all together. If you listen to the early versions of Tweezer, let's say around 1990 to 1994, Mike plays the Tweezer slap pretty consistently. As time went on, he started throwing in more and more improvised variations that appear again and again in many versions. Dimension 4 shows 2 of my favorite versions. The first bar sounds like this. I'll repeat it a few times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mike does a double thumb mute in beat 4. And that's the only real difference between this tweezer and the full riff. But there's something about this I really like, especially when you play it along with the recording of Tweezer. It sounds really funky in the context of a full band, and I think it's because the first mute happens on beat 4, which is where the snare drum typically hits. The second bar shows another variation of the riff that I hear Mike do all the time. It sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. For beats 3 and 4, he walks up from the F sharp to the G and then to A using octave slaps. He does add a mute in between there. For the next dimension, we get the walk up to the 4 chord. If you remember from the Anatomy of a Jam episode, Tweezer is basically just a 32 bar blues in A. We've got the 1 chord, A7, the 4 chord, D7, and then the 5 chord, E7. This lick is an example of what Mike plays when they're approaching the 4 chord. This dimension sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. For the first part of this lick, we have the regular tweezer slap. You can play any of the variations we talked about. For this one, I played the double thumb mute variation. And then for the last bar, this is when Mike walks up to the D. This bar may look complicated, but there's simplicity behind it. Let's play the notes without the muted slaps and we get a really classic bass line. After each note, Mike essentially just adds an octave slap with both notes muted. Welcome to the 6th dimension of Tweezer. We are at the Tweezer tap, which Mike plays like this. He starts off with an open D string, and then hammers from the 7th to 9th fret on the G string, does a full step bend, and then taps on the 17th fret while the note is still bent. Mike doesn't always do a full step bend when he hits the 9th fret on the G string, which is the note E. A lot of the times I've heard him do a half step bend, which will still sound good. Now we're building up to the most challenging part of Tweezer, and that's the riff that Gordon plays during the chorus, or what I call the chorus, the "It's Gonna Be Cold, Cold, Cold" part that happens over the 4 chord, the E7 chord. This dimension sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. We start off with an octave slap, but instead of just going up 1 octave, we go up 2. The second bar may sound a bit weird and empty for now, but we're going to start filling it out. We're getting closer to the full chorus riff. Here's what dimension 8 sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've added a bunch of muted notes in bar 1 that really add to the funkiness. And in bar 2, we've got a new slide going from the 5th fret to the 6th, as well as 2 open string pull-offs on the D string. So bar 2 sounds like 1, 2, 4, rest. So it's rest-ba-dum, bup, ba-do, ba-do, rest-ba-dum, bup, ba-do, ba-do, rest. Alright, welcome to the final dimension. The full Tweezer chorus riff is a doozy, but if you practice the previous dimensions, then it's going to be considerably easier to master. The full riff sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do what we did earlier and focus on one beat at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's look at beat 2 is... got a mute on the low E string, pop mute on the D string, and a slap on the 4th fret A string. 1, 2, 3, beat 2. So let's check out beats 1 and 2 together. 1, 2, 3, beats 1 and 2. So let's check out beats 3 and 4. There's no clean way to play beat 3, so let's just play beats 3 and 4 together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bar 2 is another one that's kind of tough to split right down the middle. There's no nice even way to do it because of where the beats lie. So let's play that all together. Bar 2 sounds like... And Mike does do a little quarter step bend on the last G. If you guys have any requests for future bass lessons, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this lesson. I'll see you guys in the next video.